Hey everyone, I'm Mike, the two-lane traveler, here to take you on another road trip in video. Sharon and I just spent the weekend on a haunted road trip across Tennessee. We visited Knoxville, a small town called Adams, which isn't too far from Nashville, and Chattanooga. Now I'll be honest, we didn't capture any blurry apparitions or spooky experiences. In fact, you could say the ghosts took the night off. But just because we didn't see them doesn't mean the stories aren't captivating. The history and legends we encountered make these locations very interesting, whether you believe in ghosts or not. So if you're ready, let's get started. Our first stop was a Friday night ghost tour in downtown Knoxville. We started in front of a massive historic high-rise, the Andrew Johnson Building. Our tour guide mentioned that a ghost is occasionally seen looking out from some of the upper floor windows, but this building's real-life history is a ghost story in itself. Built in the late 1920s as the Andrew Johnson Hotel, it was Knoxville's tallest for nearly half a century. It was a luxury spot hosting everyone from aviator Amelia Earhart to Russian composer Sergei Rachmaninoff. The history here is incredible, but the most famous and most tragic story belongs to the king of country music, Hank Williams. On the last night of 1952, Hank Williams and his driver checked into this hotel. He was en route to a show in West Virginia, but he never made it. Sometime in the early hours of January 1st, 1953, the 29-year-old country music superstar took his last breath. Now, exactly when and where he passed away is a matter of legend. He probably died shortly before or after his driver grabbed some food at the Burger Bar in Bristol, Virginia. But wherever he died, the last place anyone saw him alive was when he walked out of this building a few hours earlier. Local legends say the phantom that people occasionally see is the restless spirit of Hank Williams, perhaps forever stuck in this final journey, still looking out for a road that will take him to his next stage. The tour then took us down the street to the First Presbyterian Church and Graveyard, the oldest cemetery in Knoxville. This place definitely felt spooky, like any cemetery you would traipse through in the dark. It was here that our guide mentioned two notable spirits. The first is the ghost of a little girl who is said to wander through the yard at night. Legend has it she's unaware that she's dead and has been heard calling out to passers-by asking for help to get out of the fence surrounding the church grounds. Imagine walking by and hearing that plea. Another well-known ghost buried here is Abner Baker, a former Confederate soldier. He was killed in a particularly brutal way in 1865, dragged from jail by a mob and hanged from a tree, not here but nearby. His body was laid to rest here, and his impressive monument was erected in his memory. People have claimed to see his restless spirit in the cemetery, perhaps still tied to the anger and violence that ended his life. Speaking of famous burials, we briefly stopped at the old courthouse across the street, where Tennessee's first governor, John Sevier, is interred beneath a monument. The story about his body being exhumed from Alabama and reburied here was enough to make Sharon jump off the pedestal. Nonetheless, John didn't seem to mind Sharon's choice of a seat, and he left us alone. The next stop was the beautiful Bijou Theatre. This building is one of the oldest in Knoxville, dating back to 1817. Before it was a theater, it was the Lamar House Hotel, which even served as a Union hospital during the Civil War. That history of conflict and tragedy leaves a mark. Our guide mentioned the little girl who haunts the ladies' room on the second floor, which is a common story. Visitors and workers often report feeling a tug on their clothing or hearing unexplained noises. Paranormal investigators suggest this is a small, playful child spirit, perhaps a child who died during the hotel's time as a transient home or hospital. But there are others who died here as well. The ghost of General William Sanders is said to roam the building. He was a Union general shot and killed by a Confederate sharpshooter in the bridal suite in 1863. His ghost is often seen or heard by staff and performers. There are reports of a guy in a uniform with brass buttons in the third-floor balcony. He must love the music as he watches shows decades after his death. Another story involves a man named Thomas Atkins who was stabbed to death after a vicious argument in the hotel around 3 a.m. His spirit is sometimes heard stumbling around the hallways late at night asking for a glass of water. We did stop by the beautiful Tennessee Theatre, but no solid ghost tales for that one, just a lot of cool flashing lights. However, just a few feet away from where the theater now stands, one of the most famous and sensational historical incidents in Knoxville history happened, often referred to as the Mabry-O'Connor gunfight. The event took place on October 19, 1882 on Gay Street. There were 3 key participants in the gunfight that day. The first was General Joseph Alexander Mabry. He was a wealthy, powerful, and notoriously volatile Knoxville businessman and land speculator. He was known for his quick temper and tendency to be armed. He was the first man to die that day. The second participant was Thomas O'Connor. He was the president of the Mechanics' National Bank, which was located on Gay Street. The feud with Mabry had been brewing for years, initially over a land deal, but was intensified by the death of one of Mabry's sons a year earlier. O'Connor was the second man to die that day. The third and final participant in the day's activities was Joseph Alexander Mabry. He was an attorney and the son of General Mabry. He was the third man to die that day. The gunfight occurred in broad daylight on Gay Street, directly in front of the Mechanics' National Bank building at what is now approximately 612 South Gay Street. The Tennessee Theatre was built on the same block later in 1928. Here's what happened. Joseph Mabry, the father, was walking down Gay Street toward the bank. Banker Thomas O'Connor, anticipating the confrontation, or perhaps having been previously threatened, stepped out of the bank armed with a shotgun. O'Connor raised his gun and shot General Mabry, who fell dead in the street. Mabry's son, Joseph, heard the gunshots. He came running out of a nearby building where he was believed to have been working, or at least inside, to aid his father and confront the killer. The son, Joseph, immediately opened fire on O'Connor. At the exact same moment, O'Connor returned fire at the son. Both men shot each other and both fell dead. In a matter of seconds, all 3 men, General Mabry, his son, and Thomas O'Connor, were dead on Gay Street. The unprecedented triple homicide drew national attention, and the incident was famously recounted by author Mark Twain in his 1883 book, Life on the Mississippi, as an example of the Wild West behavior still found in the Old South. The historic, tragic moment still resonates with people here today. But the area of Gay Street where the gunfight occurred has witnessed more tragedy than just the Mabry-O'Connor shootout. Just down the street a few blocks is the 100 block of Gay Street, which was actually razed in 1919. I mean R-A-I-S-E-D as in raised up, not R-A-Z-E-D as in bulldozed. The purpose was to eliminate a dip in the road down to the railroad track. This means the original street level, including the first floors of the late 19th century buildings, became underground Knoxville. Locals report that this subterranean area, which includes old sidewalks and storefronts, holds a very eerie, trapped energy. It's a literal hidden world still standing below Gay Street. In 1904, a head-on train collision in Newmarket killed 56 people. The train depot located under Gay Street was used as a makeshift morgue. People have reported that the ghosts of those who died in the crash are still said to haunt the old railroad area below the street. That wraps up Knoxville. It was a lot of history and a lot of walking. The next morning, we hit the road for what might be America's most famous documented haunting. We drove a couple of hours north to Adams, Tennessee, the home of the infamous Bell Witch. In the early 1800s, John Bell and his family settled on a farm along the Red River near the little community of Adams, Tennessee. For years, life was peaceful until 1817, when strange things began to happen. It started with faint knocking sounds, then scratching, whispering, and the feeling that something unseen was watching. The disturbances grew stronger each night. Blankets were pulled from beds, children were slapped by invisible hands, and the family began hearing a disembodied voice that called herself Kate. Old Kate, as she became known, seemed to have a personal vendetta against John Bell and his daughter Betsy. She mocked them, mimicked their voices, sang hymns, and even carried on full conversations with astonished visitors. The story spread quickly, and soon curious neighbors, and even future President Andrew Jackson, according to legend, came to witness the haunting for themselves. Some claimed the unseen spirit predicted events and quoted scripture. Others swore they heard it laughing in the dark. The torment ended abruptly in 1820 when John Bell died, supposedly after being poisoned by old Kate. His family found a strange vial near his bedside, and when they offered a drop to the cat, the animal instantly died. The voice of the witch reportedly cackled, "I gave old Jack a big dose last night." Then, just as mysteriously as it began, the haunting faded. Yet the Bell Witch left behind one of America's oldest and creepiest ghost stories, one that still lingers in Adams today, where visitors explore the Bell Witch Cave and swear that sometimes the whispers haven't stopped. The Bell Witch is the only case in U.S. history where a death has been officially attributed to a supernatural entity. The Bell family's story ends here on the farm, but the legend didn't. Just a short distance away along the Red River, another piece of the tale began to grow, one that drew ghost hunters, skeptics, and curious travelers like me. That place is the Bell Witch Cave. Now, to be fair, the cave wasn't mentioned in the original 1817 haunting. Those strange events all took place at the Bell farmhouse. But as time went on, folks around Adams started saying the witch, old Kate, fled here after John Bell's death, and this cave became her hiding place. Guides will tell you about a Native American burial mound that once stood above the cave, and about the discovery of a young girl's grave that was later moved inside for safekeeping. Whether that's history or just a ghost story add-on, who knows? What is certain is that plenty of visitors claim to have heard whispers, felt cold drafts, and even caught strange orbs in their photos. So while the Bell Witch Cave might not be the birthplace of the legend, it's become a place where history, folklore, and a good bit of goosebumps all meet up. And if you ever find yourself driving these back roads near Adams, Tennessee, it's worth pulling over, stepping into the cool air of that cave, and deciding for yourself whether old Kate ever really left. All right, one final infamous haunted stop before we call it a night. Our haunted road trip ends at one of the grand old hotels of the South, the Reed House in downtown Chattanooga. This elegant 1870s landmark has hosted presidents, celebrities, and according to legend, one ghost who never checked out. Room 311 is said to be haunted by the spirit of Annalisa Netherly, a young woman who was reportedly murdered here back in the 1920s. Some say by a jealous lover, Others say the details have been lost to time. Guests who have stayed in the room tell stories of flickering lights, running water, and the feeling that someone unseen is standing right behind them. Now, I'd love to tell you we spent the night in room 311, but at over $1,300 a night, we decided Annalisa could have that one to herself. Besides, it was already booked. And as we soon discovered, the elevator to our 5th floor room didn't even reach the part of the 3rd floor where 311 is located. So instead, we explored what we could: the 3rd floor hallway, our own room upstairs, and the grand old lobby where a hotel clerk pointed out a portrait he said was Annalisa herself. Whether that's true or not, who knows? But I'll admit it had the perfect haunted hotel look. Even without the famous door or the haunted bathtub, the Reed House has a certain chill about it when the hallways go quiet. Maybe it's just the weight of history echoing through the floors, or maybe it's Annalisa, still waiting for her next guest to arrive. So there you have it. Our 2-night haunted road trip was a bust for actual ghost sightings, but it was an absolute goldmine for incredible, chilling Southern folklore. The stories are what make these places haunted, not just the sightings. We still had a great time, from the restless spirit of Hank Williams in Knoxville to the malicious entity that claimed a man's life in Adams and the tragic fate of Annalisa in Chattanooga. Tennessee has some of the most compelling ghost stories in the country. We may have driven home with no new paranormal evidence, but we drove away with some unforgettable tales. Thanks for traveling with us on Two Lane Traveler. If you enjoyed this dive into the historical and haunted South, please hit that like button, subscribe, and let us know in the comments below what sits at the top of your list among favorite haunted places. We'll see you on the next 2 Lane Road. Thanks for watching.